welcome. It's been a busy year. I know everyone has worked really hard. I'm really proud of the students. Not only obviously have they really excelled in school, but they've done these programs as well and have got them lifted off the ground, and that's wonderful. We have Tessie, who's going to be with us next year, so we're really happy about that, but we know that we'll hear, and most of the groups will report that they have successors. They have other students that will be taking leadership roles for next year to continue their programs, and you'll hear about that in the presentations as well. Michael has a few comments, so Michael.
Thanks, Amy. I kind of want to thank Amy. I mean, she puts her heart and soul into this and wears a lot of hats, and it's tough for both of us to kind of see everybody be successful and kind of go to the next juncture in life and go to off to college. But Philanthropy Tank doesn't end. We got our alumni group. I encourage you guys to stay active through social media, everything else. Follow your teams. I mean, you guys put a lot of effort into what you did, but this is just the beginning in the world of philanthropy, not the end. And it's 1 year, but I mean, if you think about whenever you guys kind of germinated the seed to come up with Gnome or come up with Green Garments or some of the art supporting programs and stuff that goes on, that started a long time ago. It's kind of germinated, got some cash, got some mentoring. You look how you guys have grown. It's always hard for me to kind of watch everybody kind of go off to the next chapter in their life, but they're still around through the various social things that we can do. But, want to say thanks to you guys. I mean, we learn a lot from you, but I mean, you guys are making a true impact on the community. I mean, the stuff that we do to save the environment, to further other students, to mentor them, help them learn whatever it is, whether it's a musical instrument, a craft, math, science, in terms of the tutoring, is really what Philanthropy Tank's all about, is making our community a much better place to live in the world for that matter. And it's just fun to watch everybody's projects become so successful. So thanks again. I look really encouraged to hear what you guys have accomplished over the last 12 months. So thank you.
We formed an alumni committee this year. It's our first committee because a lot of our students have gone through that transition, and some of them have even started their full-time jobs after graduating college. And so that is an opportunity to join. We know, again, there's going to be a lot of change next year for many of you. So this is a manageable opportunity for you all to stay connected, and we'd love for you to do that because there's still opportunities for internships and job linkages, and we're working with our partners for that. But wanted to mention that if you're on the alumni committee, one of the commitments is that you will be a peer mentor for a group coming through. That can be a pen pal, someone that connects, and it's just a resource that if they want to email you or want to do an occasional call, that you're someone they can reach out to because you've gone through the experience. The other thing would be we are going to have probably quarterly meetings, and we would do doodle polls to find out what's convenient, but just to check in, because we really want this committee to be also interactive with giving feedback. You guys have gone through the program. You might have some ideas to share, some things that maybe could be done differently based on your experience that would be really helpful to us. So you have the opportunity to have some input. And then the one thing we do is, you guys know that every month we've tried to do workshops in our curriculum. So part of the commitment would be to plan a workshop for the students who are coming through. So it will be led by the alumni. And some of you, I don't think we've put it out there quite yet, but Noah Rubin, who was with Can Code, and Caitlin Macias, who was with Equal Empowered, they put together a workshop about succession planning. So I know a lot of you, we just talked about, have named people that are going to be taking your roles for next year, but this is a way to kind of train about a plan and also volunteer recruitment. So that's what they planned this year, and there'll be more of that coming up as well. So just wanted to mention that to you. So if you're interested or think that's something that's doable, please come and talk to me about that as well. So we're going to start with our first recording, which is Nate Golden.
Hi, I'm sorry I can't be there today, but this is my final impact review for the Sharing the Arts project. Our top achievement of the year was establishing a successful partnership with the foundation school and running a constant mentorship program with their students. The activities of the program was that we accomplished everything that we set out to do and more in our mid-year review. We ran a steady program, taught the students every art area, and informed them about the Middle School of the Arts, which they will be eventually applying to. Our community partners were the leadership team of the foundation school, who were great partners and incredibly easy to work with. And in particular, Dr. Susan Wilmette, who's the director of arts integration there, she was the key figure who we communicated with and helped make it all happen. For challenges this year, the biggest challenge that we faced was recruiting student volunteers to act as mentors for the students. With so many busy schedules and a lot going on in high school, it's tough to manage all of that, and it was difficult at first to find people. So to solve this, we created a news package for the Dreyfus Daily News called DSOA Today, and we also made a Google sign-up form that we included in each grade's Google Classroom. And after we did all of that, the signups came rolling in, and we had more than enough. So that's how we solved that problem. And pretty much every other aspect of the program ran rather smoothly, and everything was just very easy to get done. The quantitative impact was that we had 10 meetings, which had anywhere from 8 to 35 kids in attendance each week. We had an assembly on January 25th, with about 60 people attending in total. We had about 10 volunteers from Dreyfus, and they rotated on and off each week for the program. And there were no donations given out, but we did have an end-of-year party where we personally bought about 100 cookies and cupcakes. And in total, there was about roughly 100 hours of work put into this, from brainstorming, communicating, and working on the program and doing the program, and much more. On social media, we created an Instagram account, which has a whopping 30 followers, but we have gotten some outreach from that. The qualitative impact of the program is really how the program is best defined. I wrote that it is impossible to quantify the program, as it had an incalculable effect on the students involved. From the day we first got there, they did not let go of us, both literally and figuratively. On the last day, some of them were hugging my legs as we were leaving because they didn't want to let us go. One student in particular stood out for me, and that was Jonathan. At first, he was shy and didn't want to participate in any of the activities, since all he liked doing was making origami. And then after I talked to him and really got to know him, he opened up and everything was easier. When we did visual arts, he drew portraits and landscapes, and it was better than anything I'd ever seen before. He was a natural and just hadn't had the outlet to do that. And from there, our relationship grew, and he gave me a hug every time he saw me. And at the end, he drew me a tank with my name on it. And that's just a relationship and an experience that I'll never forget, and I don't think he will either. The budget was $11,000 initially, but we have not spent any of it. In the fall, our plan is to match each of the fifth graders to a specific art area, and then individually prepare them and mentor them for their Bach audition, where they can continue to pursue their artistic goals. And then when each student has an art area, we will purchase the supplies necessary for them, which could be art supplies, instruments, dance, apparel, and much more. The timeline, from June to August of last year, we were brainstorming ideas. September to November, we were looking for a school to hold the program. And December to February, we established the connection with the foundation school, had the assembly, and had the first couple of meetings. And then from March to May was the meat of the program, where we had most of our meetings and had our final event. We just want to say thank you very much, and we're looking forward to continuing to do this next year. Thank you.
This was a program, kind of was our comeback program this year, and in some ways, because it started off a little slow. Nate will even say himself he was a little missing in action, needed a little help to get redirected. And they had this one event that really, I think, just kind of changed everything, kind of flipped a switch that they had this event. And this picture is actually from that event. They did almost like a pep rally, if you will, but they had students that represented each of the areas. Voice, they had a quartet. They had a group that did a dance presentation that was really fun, and you could see the kids getting really excited about the program, and then they gave a little talk about what the program would be, and then they were off and running, and it was great to see that. But their intention is really to expose the students. They're about 3rd to 5th graders. Again, the foundation school is a product of the Center for Creative Education, so that's their partner. And then they started having these after-school kind of presentations that Nate mentioned, where they had a group that would rotate so that they could try out each thing and see which thing they liked. So now that they've done that, in the fall, they'll start with these very specific tutoring after-school programs for those who wanted to learn an instrument, those who wanted to do voice, and so on. So, any questions about that? Okay, great. We're going to go next to then Bridging the Gap.
Hi, I'm Dua. This is Jay. And our program is called Bridging the Gap. We pretty much provide school supplies to underprivileged schools. Right now, we are partnering with Crestwood Middle, and the supplies have come in. They're currently sitting in my house.
So our progress and accomplishments so far. So the beginning of the school year in the first semester, we tried to supplement as many school supplies as possible away from the Philanthropy Tank funding and actually through school supply drives and private donations. So that started in around November, December. We had a school-wide supply drive, and we raised over 170 packs of supplies. And then in the past week, through Philanthropy Tank and our grant funding, we received 4 separate shipments of supplies. Me and Dua were out of town though. We actually just got back in the past 2 days. But yeah, we'll be taking care of that over the course of the summer too. From Philanthropy Tank though, what we've learned is the importance of communication. We had a little bit of trouble early on with processes like the class wallet system to actually administer the grant funding, organizing the supply drives with the school and actually delivering the supplies together. And we learned, looking back on all of this, we realized that a lot of problems would have been easier to solve if we were more open with the problems we were facing to our network, both with Aisha, our mentor, and also with all the connections we have at Philanthropy Tank too. And going forward, that's something we want to prioritize, is keeping that open stream of communication, even if everything isn't going great and even if we have some challenges along the way. So the way we compiled our budget to actually determine what we were buying was also in the first semester, a couple months before school supply drive. We reached out to all the teachers at Crestwood Middle School, and they were able to fill out a teacher survey form with their specific needs. Specifically an art teacher we had to get back in contact with because she had very unique needs with the type of canvas we were buying, the specific types of paintbrushes too. But luckily we're all able to figure that out too. So we were making sure that the supplies we're actually donating to the schools fit the specific needs they actually want. And with that, we just had more and more outreach to our partner school. And that pretty much covers it too. For our school supply drive, we cooperated with our National Honor Society to raise more supplies, and that was a good event for both of us too.
We touched on a little bit about this on the previous slide, but in terms of the obstacles we faced, we created an Amazon wish list originally, but that didn't necessarily take off. We tried advertising it on the local news, but I think what became more effective was using things like social media or just through our school, since that was basically what we were targeting. Like Nate did in his previous thing on DSOA Today, we were able to advertise our program and get people to donate. And in terms of incentive, we provided things like NHS hours or community service hours for our club as well. And the learning how to navigate the supplies system through Class Wallet, that became a little more about that communication issue. And as soon as we were able to communicate with Amy and with Nakia, it became a lot easier to get everything done. And just in the future, we're going to continue to do that and, tell our successors to do that as well. And being able to adjust our timeline. Originally, our timeline made it seem as though we would be able to get these supplies out to students by December as like a Christmas surprise type thing, but that didn't end up working. And what we had to learn is just how to be flexible with those supplies and how to adjust that timeline so that now we're going to be able to get those supplies out as a beginning of the year type gift. And unexpected outcomes. We expected Class Wallet to kind of be a different system than it was. And it became a lot easier to navigate, again, once we got in communication. And given those difficulties, I think we learned a lot. And again, like Jay said, the most important lesson we learned was definitely that communication aspect, and something we will be passing on to our successors next year.
We had 2 different school-wide supply drives, and that's how we got to that 170 number. Those supplies are actually sitting in my house too. So yeah, me and Dua need to coordinate about that. Through WPTV, as Dua mentioned, we went on the local news and we were able to advertise our program and advertise our school supply drive. The Amazon wish list we did mention on the WPTV didn't end up taking off, but we were still able to get good outreach off of that. Between the 4 of us, each of us spent in the grand total over 300 hours on this project, between coordinating between different schools, continuing to run our tutoring program that's been active for 2 years too, and just making sure that all of this is working. And something important that we did too is we expanded our network of volunteers this year. So through our club at our school, the Empowering Youth Action Club, we're able to enlist new members, and because all 4 of us are graduating seniors, we're also able to enlist a new officer board, and we're currently teaching them how to work through the Philanthropy Tank system so they can carry on this project next year too. Our social media growth it's been growing. We created the Bridging the Gap social media Instagram, and then we've been advertising on there. Additionally, onto our Empowering Youth Action social media too. We already have over 100 followers on that, and that's been growing too, so we've been getting more and more outreach. Some additional takeaways we have: our partner teachers, especially the ones at Crestwood and the art teacher I mentioned earlier, have expressed a lot of gratitude for this program, because not only are we making sure that they get the donations eventually, but we're also making sure it meets the specific needs they have in the classroom, and they don't have to go out of their own pocket to fulfill the needs of their students too. And then once again, we just realized how important it is to ask for help. How to get things rolling, and even if we honestly just sometimes don't really know what we're doing, how important it is to really just reach out for help, and that just makes everything a lot easier.
And touching on that art teacher, and just other teachers in general at the school, we were able to actually get into a text correspondence with them, and through that it became a lot more personal of an experience. And I think that's really important when it comes to a project like this, because too often we just send generalized supplies to different schools, and being able to target it was not only gratifying for us, but just for them, just to see that they actually needed these supplies and that we'll eventually be able to get it to them. A breakdown of our budget. So originally we were awarded $10,000, and I think some of the bigger purchases and some of the main ones have been the TI-30XA scientific calculators, some paper, pens, glue, sticks, and college wood paper. There is so much paper in my house. But the calculators, for example, one of the main reasons we spent so much money on that was because for standardized testing, students need to know how to navigate those kinds of calculators, and being able to provide a class set was really important in terms of that aspect. And right now we've spent $2,200, and one of the plans we have for our successors is to make sure that some of those supplies that might not be able to get reused, like pens, paper, glue, we are able to repurchase those kinds of supplies and provide them in the coming years. And our remaining balance is $7,794.
Oh, that's it.
That's
thank
it.
you guys. Yeah.
Thank you. If any of you have any questions.
You guys do have a fair amount of money still left to spend. So, as you said, you're going to work with your group. I mean, where do you think the money will be best spent to continue your mission?
Hopefully we want to expand this program, not just to Crestwood Middle School, but also to an additional elementary school. So we plan on using some of the budget there. Earlier in December, we planned to run a public speaking workshop. We actually coordinated a date and time and a whole Zoom session with the staff and administration at Crestwood Middle School. However, it didn't get that much traction, but later on, we want to host specific workshop classes that aren't really accessible in the elementary and middle school curriculum. Things like Foundation of Science with aerospace rocketry, public speaking, and financial literacy too. And we know that some other groups also have some experience in that too, so maybe we could host a collaborative opportunity. So in both of those areas, both in a new partner school and also in these workshop classes, is where we want to target the rest of our budget.
One thing would be really helpful, I think, maybe to think about is also a survey or some kind of information that Crestwood would complete, or some way, again, to kind of have a full circle under, report back of the impact or how it's being used or how many students are doing, doing something with the calculator, what exercise. That would be really good for just reporting measures. So think about maybe something that you could do with the school to complete some kind of very simple, easy questionnaire. So we're all kind of chuckling a little bit because I think that's your initiation into nonprofit. There is always something in your house. You'll always have something in your garage or in a room or something. I think we're going to do Drop the Vape next.
My name is Tessie. My project is Drop the Vape. The main focus is to decrease the number of teen vape users in Palm Beach County through 3 different approaches, which are education, support, and advocacy. So this is just like an overview of what I'm going to be addressing. So starting off on like the good side of things, so some of the accomplishments from the past year. So these are just kind of like checking off the boxes of some of the things that I had hoped to do in my initial proposal with Philanthropy Tank last year. So informing and engaging students. So I was able to, I'll talk about this a little bit more, but I was able to host some different events with the help of the Palm Beach Behavioral Health Coalition to help actually engage different students in both the middle school and high school level through like an educational course that taught them what the dangers of vaping are, some of the health related impacts, and then also environmental related impacts. Then I was also able to create the Text to Quit program that I talked about in that original presentation as well. So I launched like a trial run of that back in December, I believe, and then starting to get it up and running and using some different promotional methods of trying to get that out to different students throughout the county. Hosting some outreach events that I did both at my school and then also again with the Palm Beach Behavioral Health Coalition, training teen facilitators. So some of the other members of the Teen Coalition in Action, which is like a teen-based drug prevention group that I'm a part of, I was able to be able to train them to be able to facilitate the training that I gave to some other students. So that way next year they'll be able to kind of help out and step up and do some of the responsibilities that I've been doing by myself this year. And then finally, just spreading awareness. So through like social media outreach and then also through those different outreach events, I was able to kind of gain awareness for my project through both students and others in the community, which has been really helpful. And then moving on to that note from others in the community. So some of the community partners that I've been working with were Erica Whitfield and Mara Gerwig of Wellington. Both of them have kind of just given me some guidance and different suggestions on how I could veer my project in different directions that I hadn't really thought of by myself. So that was just kind of like interesting to get their perspectives on what I was able to do. That was just a little bit different than my original plan. And then also with the help of, like I mentioned, Palm Beach Behavioral Health Coalition, they're able to put on these huge events, gain enough awareness and outreach to be able to reach a lot of different students throughout the county. So that's been a really big help as well. So then some of the challenges that I faced, responses from schools. So this is more just about like communicating with different principals and guidance counselors from different schools throughout the county. It's really hard to expect a response. As like a student, I'm just kind of like cold calling, I guess, but really through emails and stuff. Through different principals and different members at different middle schools and high schools. That's been really difficult, just like gaining responses from them without really any like assistance. I've had like some success with it, but not a whole lot. So I'm hoping to kind of increase that throughout the next year. Budget allocation, so just kind of figuring out where to spend my money. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit, but just kind of like what I really need to spend my money on. I think I was a little bit like lost in what I would want to do with that. So with the help of my mentor, Tom, who's not here, but he kind of helped me figure that out. He was a big help with that because I just didn't really have any experience with that beforehand. So that was definitely a big challenge that I faced. And then volunteer growth. I know this is kind of like a common one among all the projects, but just finding other people who would want to kind of reach the same goals as I do and learn and be a part of sort of like the behind the scenes end of things. And then finally, time management, just trying to balance working on the project with school and testing and all of that. So, but then I just wanted to mention one unexpected outcome, which was SWAT, which stands for Students Working Against Tobacco. That is the club that I'm currently the co-president of at my school. We're a pretty small group, but we did a couple of different events at my school this year that have kind of helped to reach kids at my school in a different way. This was one of those suggestions that Erica Whitfield had actually recommended to me, was using SWAT as sort of like an outlet to be able to advertise my project in a different way. And that has also helped me gain some more experience and knowledge about the dangers of vaping and just kind of like more of the education side, trying to find a different perspective and a different outlet of being able to reach students. So then measuring my impact. So we had about 75 students at the October Youth Summit event, which was one of those held by the Palm Beach Behavioral Health Coalition. And then another 75 about at the January outreach event that we did through SWAT at my school. And then about 170 kids from the April Youth Summit. There were like almost 500 kids in attendance, but only about a handful of them came to the Drop the Vape training. They had like the option to go to other trainings. So we estimate about 170, so about a total of 320 students who have gained awareness through the project just through those outreach and educational events. And then we also have over 500 social media views via the SWAT Instagram, as well as the Teen Coalition in Action Instagram. We've shared different photos from the different events that I've been doing through those, so we've had a lot of outreach through that. And then I've estimated about 50 hours, probably more, spent on working on the project since last summer up until now. And then just to like kind of talk about my personal experience with the project. So one thing that I just really liked doing that I didn't really know what was going to come out of it was the finals event back in March. I really liked attending that event. I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but I really liked being able to meet different people from the community, even if I wasn't really sure who they were at first. I know they're just like important adult figures in the community, but obviously they have some sort of like prestige to their name, and so they have different connections throughout the community, and that just kind of helped me with some networking. I gained some new contacts from that, and also just being able to spread the word about my project in a different way, not necessarily towards students but to adults. And that was kind of eye-opening too, just to see how many adults didn't really know that vaping was an issue. Some of them don't even know what vaping is. They asked me to explain it to them, which is just so surprising to me because it's such a big, prominent issue in schools. So I think that was just kind of a cool experience, and I really liked attending that. And then on to my budget. So a lot of the money that I spent was allocated towards promotional items, so working on how to get out the Text to Quit program, and that's something that I'm going to be working on to spend the remaining amount of my budget. So what I'm able to do to kind of like up those outreach events and make them a little bit more engaging for students, and hopefully up the participation levels on some of them. So I have $8,703 left to spend, and I'm trying to allocate it towards those types of promotional materials. One thing that I've been talking about and is kind of in the works is being able to put together boxes for schools. So sort of like a packaged way of being able to distribute those promotional items. So different like lollipops, flyers, office supplies, handouts that kind of explain what the project is, and also be able to promote that Text to Quit number to students. So that way it's kind of like all in one easy place for schools to be able to distribute, and that might make it a little bit easier and sort of run more smoothly in order to do that. And then just like a timeline overview of what I was able to accomplish over the past year. So from June to August of last year, I was able to create the 90-day plan, which kind of helped me to like lay out exactly what I was going to do in the first year of implementing my project. I developed the Drop the Vape trainings, like the actual like presentation that I was able to present those few times at different events. I met with Mayor Gerwig and Erica Whitfield. Like I mentioned before, they were just some partners in the community that were able to kind of help gear my project in the right direction. And then I also established the SWAT chapter at my school. And then from September to November, we did like a club rush at my school, so that was able to help gain participation in SWAT. We also spread awareness at the Youth Summit during that time, and then ran the trial of the Text to Quit program as well. In Q3, which was December through February, sort of preparing those promotional materials for the outreach event that we ended up hosting in January. So it was like right when we got back from winter break. So that was kind of a cool way to kind of start off the second semester. We did the mid-year review, and then also just kind of shifting gears in the budget and what I was going to allocate the money towards. And then finally from March to May was kind of, I guess, more the meat of the project as well. So raising more awareness at the finals event, facilitating that small scale online training that I did, and then also being able to train the other students to be able to facilitate the training, and then finally conducting that at the Youth Summit back in April. And then these are just some of my future goals that I hope to accomplish over the next year, is to obtain some more pilot schools. So I'm hoping to work on that over the summer, so that way early in the following school year, we're able to kind of up some participation at different schools. I also would like to increase my advocacy work. That was one of my goals from the original proposal that I gave from Philanthropy Tank, and I've sort of like took a step back from that, but I'm hoping to get back on gear or back on the track and try to increase that a little bit more. I'm hoping to reach 50 Text to Quit participants by August, so trying to up that growth on social media will definitely help with that, and that's just the next goal too as well. Just kind of increasing the outreach through that and trying to promote it in different ways so that students are more engaged. And then finally, recruit successors. So I am a junior right now. I'll be a senior, so I do have one more year to stick around, but I'm hoping to recruit some more people into SWAT at my school that will hopefully be able to step up and take on the project once I go to college. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And thank you for your time.
Amongst schools in Palm Beach County, do you know if there's like a countywide club that is just drug prevention that maybe you could reach out to and introduce your program regarding vaping that way? Or
So SWAT, which is Students Working Against Tobacco, is like actually a national organization that does have chapters at different schools throughout the state and throughout the county. Launching that at my school was sort of like the first step in doing that. But what I'm hoping to do next year is try to gain connections with the advisors for that club at other schools. So hopefully we can kind of network and use that, like I mentioned, as like an outlet to kind of targeting my project in schools, because that was definitely something that I haven't really thought of before, but it definitely makes sense to use not use them, but engage students that are like already kind of interested in that topic and passionate about that to be able to help with the project and launching it in different ways. So that's definitely something I'm hoping to work on throughout the summer and then also next school year.
There is some exciting news, which I was going to share a little bit later, but it seems from Tessie's presentation it might be the right time. But we are working with the school district. We've received a lot of receptiveness recently to doing a MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding, a partnership to do some more structured things within the school district, which I think in a lot of your cases, when you're talking about reaching out to schools, making connections, will provide an easier kind of pipeline for that. So we've had a lot of really good discussions with Dr. Geraldine Johnson, who's the director of Choice Options and or Choice Academy and Career Options. And so through that department, it seems like we might have some opportunities to bring Philanthropy Tank in a more formal way to a lot of schools, which I think will help you with your programs in the next coming years. So Tessie, I can fill you in a little bit more about that. But even with some of you who are trying to get relationships to expand into other schools, it'd be a good conversation to have. So fingers crossed, but it looks like we're getting some traction on that. So Noam.
So I'm Mallory Thomas.
And I'm Alyssa Jiggets.
And we are Noam. Elise is currently at UF and Rio is in Alaska. So we are here to represent Noam. So just a general overview of what we've accomplished in the last year. So our top achievement, which we're super proud of, is that we held 8 total events throughout the 12 months that we were active. And over 120 volunteers in total. And there probably is a little overlap in there, but that's just the general estimate once adding up all the volunteers that attended our events. And we had about 20 successful club meetings with approximately 25 students in each meeting. And this is a club meeting held every Tuesday at FAU High School. And students participated in creating and maintaining gardens within the school and also learning about like how to garden. And we had a few different projects throughout the year. So we did like 6 different garden beds with both butterfly plants and tomatoes and herbs, which we ended up harvesting some at the end of the year. And we also created a drip irrigation system for tomatoes and radishes, which was a fun project. So we surpassed our initial goal in April, which was to establish 5 community gardens, and we did 8. And we didn't officially conduct any environmental education events, although it was incorporated with the events that we did do, and we had little lessons within our club. And we had a whole bunch of community partners to help us along the way. So that includes Ann Norton Sculpture Gardens, which Francis really helped with that connection. Community Greening, Wise Tribe, National Wildlife Refuge Association, Gulf Stream Goodwill, Junior League of Boca Raton, and Today for Tomorrow Foundation. So a whole bunch of partners. And yeah, so they just assisted us with getting volunteers or getting the word out. and providing locations. That was probably the biggest thing.
For the future, we will be taking a short break in the summer, but our club will resume in August of 2023 with our same sponsor, Robin Barkus. And since Mallory and I will be graduating, we have 2 successors. We have Selena Gray, who is a rising junior, and Music Watkins, who's a rising senior. And since Rio will be staying at FAU, they will be there to kind of provide the support and mentorship needed to make this transition smoother. For future events, due to our relationship with FAU, we will be able to contribute to their ongoing projects at the FAU Community Garden. These projects include the Food Forest with the organization Today for Tomorrow, the Farm to Table Med School Garden, as well as the Native Seed Propagation and Collection Garden. As well, we hope to continue working with our previous organizations such as Carver Middle School and South Tech Preparatory Academy to expand and renovate their gardens. And finally, we hope to design and implement environmental educational events, since this was one of the initial goals that we were not able to achieve this past year.
All right, so some of the challenges we faced. So it was difficult to get consistent volunteers or meet our full expectation for volunteers. We were able to get enough for most of our events, but with different weekend activities and the busy life of a high school student, it was hard to get a large amount of volunteers, but we did get a good amount, I would say. And then some Gnome Club meetings had to be canceled because it relied on our advisor, Ms. Barkus, to be present. So there were some meetings that we just had to cancel the day before, so that was unfortunate. Then some unexpected outcomes. So events needed to be planned much before or long before the actual event would be. So to accommodate for funding and getting enough volunteers, which made some of the events a little rushed, the few weeks before. But it's just something to keep in mind for future events, to plan it long before. And then the transportation of plants, we ended up using my mother's truck for most of it. And I don't know if there's a better arrangement that could be done, or if we could ask some companies to deliver to the site. It just made it that we had to limit the number of plants that we brought, and it was a little difficult and messy, but we'll try and figure out a future solution. And another unexpected outcome is just the number of people that wanted to help and the community partners that were so interested in what we were doing.
So our qualitative impact is mainly composed of our volunteers, our club members, and the community members who came to our events and interacted with our gardens. As for the volunteers, they always said that Gnome Club was one of their favorite part of the week, and that's largely because we offered a safe space for them to kind of relax in nature in the middle of their hectic schedules, and so that's why they made it the favorite part. And as for Mallory, Elise, Rio, and I, we all greatly enjoy the opportunity to share our love and passion for gardening. It's something that we'll just never forget. And as well, this last quote is a testimonial from one of the reviews of the gardens that we help implement. In this particular, they said that this was their first time visiting Florida, and that the garden was beautiful and that it was actually their favorite part of their trip. And this was one of many that we found in relation to our gardens.
So next up we have our quantitative impact, which I kind of touched on with the first slide. So we had 8 events related to community gardens, and we have an estimated 180 people that have engaged with the gardens in the areas that we created them, and this probably includes the volunteers as well. And we have a total of 120 volunteers in total engaged with Gnome events, and combining this together along with the people in our club, we estimate over 300 people have been impacted by Gnome's events. And then we kind of have a chart showing how our club grew slightly throughout the year and how many people attended our events as well. So I can also touch on the budget. We were originally awarded $10,500, and our main source of payment was soil, tools, and the original purchase of all the equipment, so shovels and rakes and all that. And we've spent a total of, looks like $2,091, with a remaining balance of $8,408. So we do plan to continue our project with our successors, and we hope to do very similar activities where we create gardens and also hold environmental education. So that money will go towards plants, soil, any additional tools that we need, mulch, and so on.
And this is a short timeline of our events. So in total, we had 8 events, and each of them we helped renovate and implement gardens in different areas in Palm Beach County. Also, on top of this, we also held weekly meetings every Tuesday throughout the entire year. So there's a little bit more than just these 8 events that we did.
Thank you.
Just a comment. I think it's interesting that you did the chart of your activities, because I think that's very helpful when you're thinking about what was best attended and assessing when to hold an event and maybe the best time to reach people. So just in terms of like reflecting back and sharing that with your successors, how you want to schedule those activities, and maybe think about starting quarterly and then, arrange, kind of call into place your schedule after that. But obviously it looked like you had a spike in certain months. So.
Yeah, that was our first event, which had, I think, 35 volunteers. And it was also, well, definitely we're going to slow down during the summer because it's just way too hot to garden, and people are a little averse to going out and gardening for 2.5 hours in 100-degree heat. But once we get back into the winter months, I think that's when we had the most success.
One thing that I would say maybe is for summer that you can think about that's indoor is a lot of the libraries are looking for programming, and they have a lot of people looking for how-to sessions, and maybe there's a way to kind of check into that if that's an interest and if people have time over the summer and want to be kind of directed to something.
Thank you.
Question I have for both of you. You said what the organization. What did you guys learn about yourself?
I learned that I really do like interacting with people who have the same interest, especially in gardening, because you learn so much as well. Like, I wasn't an amazing gardener. Like, I grew some stuff at home, but now it's like I've learned how to grow things from seed a lot better, which is helpful. I don't know, and other little tidbits about plants and things. So, yeah.
Honestly, I just love sharing my passion for gardening. It was really fun seeing how everyone grew over the past year, starting from our first event to our last event. People finally learned how to use a shovel. It was just really nice to share both of our passions for gardening.
Yeah, the people at the club are very funny. How they're like, we love gnome, and they because they do the tours for the next year of 9th graders, and there were I wasn't there, but apparently there was a gnome chant.
Oh.
When they went past the garden for gnome. So there's a lot of excitement for something that's outdoors. And I don't know if someone might have.
Hopefully.
Because no. Yeah. And the last 10 minutes of our meeting is usually spent playing Frisbee, or someone will bring a volleyball. So and there's a grassy area. So it's fun just to hang out in the sun, do some gardening. It's fun. Yeah.
I've got one more question, and this can really go along the lines of what you just asked. And for each of the projects, how did your personal growth or your experience contribute to where you applied to college? Was it advantageous to you?
I think it definitely was advantageous.
Yeah.
Because everyone always makes the joke oh, you need to make a nonprofit organization to get into a really good school. And then it's we can kind of say that we made a nonprofit organization and we got into a pretty good school. We're both going to Columbia. So it was really cool to see that that joke or actually come to life. And Columbia specifically does have a big emphasis on philanthropy and service. So I think it really helped us with that match.
Get asked that question a lot. A lot of schools are just looking for the fact not only that you are a part of something, but you've led or initiated something. So I think that's what's hopefully unique about your experience here, is that you've gotten to lead something and start it from its infancy and get it to grow and to be in these stages that now where you're kind of in everybody's at a little bit different stages, but you now kind of are kicking into gear and know what's needed, and you're driving this. And I think that's really important when you're talking or thinking. I'm looking at you, Tessie, because I know you're going to be writing essays, but when you're thinking about, what you have led or what you have done, hopefully this will be a big part of that. So.
My name is Amelia Williams, and my project is Green Garments. This is some of our progress this year. We hosted a very successful clothing drive during the school year. We collected items from both students and community members that, they would have thrown away or that they would have just given up. And this allows students to feel as though they're part of something. They're donating something and giving it to an organization that will help to upcycle and rewear these garments. We had our Green Halloween event, which was made possible by our partnership with Goodwill. We educated community members on the benefits of shopping for Halloween costumes and accessories secondhand. And we even set up a station where participating members were able to see, like, in person how to alter costumes and how to make them more personal and make them fit better. Every month this year, we hosted at least one informational meeting through the environmental club at our school, which I was the co-president of. I think this was really important, again, for students to have a role in their education as people who live on the earth that are trying to save it. And also just seeing that they have power as consumers, because as a teen you feel kind of helpless when it comes to these environmental issues. So I think it was very important for these students to see that they could have power by the little decisions that they make each day. Obstacles faced. The biggest obstacle that we had was finding a space to host our sewing sessions and store our collected clothing from clothing drives. Moving forward through the summer, we're hoping to have Resource Depot, which was a community partner that we had previously corresponded with. We're hoping to see if we can host a weekly sewing session there, maybe not so much use them for garment storage. I've sent email correspondence waiting for a reply. I'm hoping to do sewing sessions in the month of June and July. And we've been using a storage unit and, like Jay and Dua, our garage and living room for donated items and for sewing machines. So this is our quantitative impact. Over 170 different students were taught about the fast fashion industry and green alternatives this year. We had over 400 unique pieces of clothing donated to us, and this includes jackets, jeans, but also shoes, bedding, and accessories. 8 informational meetings were held through the environmental club throughout the duration of this year. And as far as qualitative impact, I included a quote from a few of our leaders that I think really encapsulate why this program helps students feel as though they have a part and they have a say in what happens to our local environments and the environment as a whole. And this is our budget. So we were awarded $10,500, and our remaining amount after this year is $9,794. The biggest purchase was sewing machines, which I purchased recently, and they are now sitting in a big pile in my living room. And sewing machines are pretty expensive. They're bulky. So we're hoping to have 7 by the next cycle of throughout this year and next year once we give the program away to the successor, and hopefully have a place to store everything, because I don't know if my parents will allow us to use the house anymore. We need to purchase storage bins for clothing. I'm hoping to really have a place to store this clothing and categorize it so that it's easy for volunteers to find the garments that they would like to sew, attain the remaining sewing machines, add clothing racks and clothing scales to measure the pounds of clothing that we collect, and mannequins to model clothing, and, sew garments onto. So the timeline. So in Q1, we had our partnership with the Volo Foundation, in which we received our very first clothing donation from them. In September through November, we had our first Green Halloween event. We had additional donations received and began starting our educational meetings and leadership meetings. In Q3, we had our school-wide clothing drive initiated, where additional clothing donations were collected and educational meetings continued. In the month of May and March, in Q4, the clothing drive came to an end. I found program successors, which I did not introduce them on the slide, but her name is Sabrina. She's a rising senior at Dreyfus. She's very passionate about the environment, and she's a great fit for the program, and she was very involved this past year. And for Earth Day, even though we did not get to do our Earth Day fashion show like we had originally planned because there was no space to host the sewing sessions, we had students create Earth Day posters and hang them around the school. That was a very nice collaborative effort. And planning for summer sewing sessions. And I think that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Millie, could you just share a little bit more for everyone what the Green Halloween event was about?
So the Green Halloween event was hosted at Boynton Beach Goodwill, and it was where we had about 10 volunteers from Dreyfus. We gathered and we basically went around the store asking people if they needed help finding Halloween costumes. We were able to meet some really cool individuals. We met this one lady who was a teacher at Wellington Middle School, and she was actually, she had a bunch of Halloween parties that weekend, and we were able to help her find 3 separate costumes. It was amazing. And we actually sewed a few costumes together, and we got the community members were able to see firsthand like the process of sewing and building a costume. We also created a display for Goodwill customers that we weren't able to see how many people saw the display in the end once we packed up and left, but we kept that display up afterwards, so we're hoping that people were able to see that and found some cool costumes. And it's really important, just so much goes wasted during Halloween. People buy clothing items for one costume and they throw it away. So it's important to buy clothing items that you can reuse, or you buy them secondhand so that nothing new is being created. And it's more sustainable and better for the earth.
I was just going to say, I think that that's something that's really a great thing to expand on. And though you weren't able to do the runway, I think you could display costumes, because you guys were doing really a great job of doing displays and mannequins at that event, that maybe there's a way to incorporate that runway part of things into a Halloween kind of costumey event. And that could be a little interesting, because I know there's some spring events, but this would be an alternative in the fall.
For sure, yeah.
To think about. Any other questions? Great job, everybody.